Hey, it's Mother's Day, 10 a.m. worship service at Adairsville Church of God. We want to wish every one of you a Mother's Day, happy Mother's Day. Today we're doing our drive-up service at 11 o'clock today so you can spend the whole day with your mothers, as well as we have a gift for all mothers. So if you come at 11 o'clock, we have something we want to give you because we think you're extremely important. There's some quotes that I want to share with you in the beginning of the time we have together today. One of those quotes is, a mother should be like a quilt. Keep the children warm, but not smother them. Someone else said, a mother who really is a mother is always a mother. Someone else said, God could not be everywhere at the same time. Now I understand that God is omnipresent, but I'm just telling you, it's an old Jewish proverb said, God couldn't be everywhere at the same time, so he made mothers. Someone said this, you don't have to deserve a mother's love. You have to deserve your father's love. He's a little bit more particular. A mother is the name of God on the lips of all the hearts of small children. Of all the things that come in multiple numbers, there are plenty of rainbows, plenty of fish in the sea, plenty of stars in the sky. There's brothers, sisters, uncles, and aunts, but there's only one mother. Only one mother. Someone said it like this, the two most important things a mother can ever give you are roots and wings. Someone said, my mother is a woman who speaks more with her life than her words. So when we think about Mother's Day, we realize that there are many, many famous people in life who quoted and have been quoted things they said about their mother. Abraham Lincoln said, all that I am or ever hope to be is due to my angel mother. William Wallace said, hand that rocks the cradle, hand that controls the world. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, men are what their mothers make them. So today when we think about mothers, we understand how important Mother's Day is. We realize that Mother's Day was created by one person named Anna Jarvis. She began the holiday in 1907. In 1941, the president made it official. The second Sunday in May every year is Mother's Day. So when we think about mothers, when we think about Mother's Day and how important they are, there are probably some things and some mothers in the Bible that probably have maybe greater importance than other people. But there's a mother in the Word of the Lord found in the book of Exodus. Exodus chapter 1, verse number 7 tells us of a political shifting of the winds, a political change. There was a guy in the book of Exodus named Joseph. And in Exodus chapter 1, verse number 7, it talks a little bit about this person. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty. And the land was filled with them. But now there arose a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. And he said to the people, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we are. The guy named Joseph was a guy that God had used to save the nation of Egypt, actually save the world. Pharaoh had a dream one night, and his dream was that there were 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows and 7 fat ears of corn, 7 skinny ears of corn. And none of the guys that were over the visions and dreams in Egypt could determine what it was. And so he discovered there was a guy named Joseph who was incarcerated in one of the jails in Egypt. And he brought him to his kingdom, and he said to him, he said, here's the deal. 7 fat cows is 7 good years. 7 skinny cows, 7 bad years. 7 fat ears of corn, 7 good years. 7 skinny, 7 bad. And so he tells him what to do, how to store up everything. And Pharaoh immediately makes him the vice Pharaoh, if you will, the second guy in charge, really the first guy in charge. And so he puts him over everything. And so from that time on, the Hebrews and Joseph were favored citizens in the nation of Egypt. Well, there rises a Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph, and Pharaoh, who comes out on the scene at this point in Exodus chapter 1, said, we got to get rid of the Hebrews. There are too many of them. And so he passes a law. He don't pass a law. He creates a law. He's the king, right? And he said, anybody who has a male Hebrew baby must take that baby and abort it, kill it, get rid of it, throw it in the Nile River, and it's the responsibility of all the Hebrews to get rid of the baby boys. You can keep your little girls, but get rid of the boys. And so we see that scene beginning to unfold. And so today we're going to talk about that. But there's a name I never want you to forget. As long as you live, don't forget this name. It's not a positive name, it's just a negative name. We talked about it last week, Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger is the mother of Planned Parenthood. She and her cohorts are responsible for over 60 million babies being killed in the United States, not including throughout the world. You say, is that significant? If we don't understand history, we're all going to be in trouble. Margaret Sanger was a woman who felt like only certain people should have children, only certain classes of people. So it's the same thing going on in the book of Exodus. The people felt like only the Egyptians should have babies. So what they did is they told all the midwives, make sure that when a Hebrew woman has a baby, you destroy the baby boy. And so in Exodus chapter 2, we begin to see a story. But today I want to talk to you about three things. Who is that mother? Who would have hid such a thing? And who would have thought such a thing? So in Exodus chapter 2, verse number 1 said, there went a man of the house of Levites and took a wife of the daughter of Levites. And the woman conceived and bare a son. And when she saw that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. I thought about that. There's a woman, and that's all the book of Exodus said. There's a woman who's of the tribe of the Levites, and she marries a man of the tribe of the Levites. And when she marries this man, she realizes that she's going to have a child. Now, what's interesting about the woman is her name. Her name is Jochebed, and Jochebed means Yahweh's glory, or the glory of Yahweh. That's what her name meant. She has 2 children before she has this third child. The first child's name is Miriam, and Miriam in the modern age definition of Miriam means a wished for child. But in the Arabic, it means one who loved Yahweh or one who is loved by Yahweh. And so she has her firstborn child. It's a little girl named Miriam, and her name means that she loves Yahweh and Yahweh loves her. What a name. What a name to name your child, that she is a lover of God and God loves her. The second child comes along whose name is Aaron. Aaron means a mouthpiece of God. So here's a woman. She has 2 children already. The law says you can't have any baby boys. But when Moses comes along, she decides she's going to raise this child. She loves this child. And it's important to her that this child lives. As a matter of fact, she understood what the law was. She understood what was going on. But she realized that she wasn't raising any children that were ordinary children. She was raising extraordinary children. The third child she has is a baby boy, and she doesn't name the boy. As a matter of fact, Pharaoh's daughter names him, and she names him Moses. Now, I'm telling you, that's a real unique thing, because when Moses is named, it meant 2 things. It meant, number 1, that he was lifted out of. And because Pharaoh's daughter lifts him up out of the river Nile, his name lifted up out of. And then it also means to give birth. The river Nile was considered a place of birth. And so when she finds this baby boy, she names him Moses. Now, that's significant, because if you really understand, I know you understand, Moses becomes the leader of a new nation. Before that, they were a patriarchal society, but now they become a nation. And God uses Moses to birth a new nation and to lift up the nation of Israel out of Egypt. What an interesting story. But this woman named Jochebed knew she wasn't raising ordinary children. And can I tell you this today? If you're a born-again believer, you don't raise ordinary children. You say, well, how do you know that? Because if you believe in prayer and the value and the power of prayer, and you pray over your children, they won't be ordinary. As a matter of fact, these 3 children, we see later on that their names have meant something and it made a difference. So today, when you're raising your children, don't be saying, I'm just raising ordinary children. As a matter of fact, sometimes we prophesy over our children by the words we say, like, well, they just can't, they just don't have the ability, they don't have the talent. You need to stop that. You need to begin to prophesy words over your children that say that they will be a world leader. And they may not be on the world stage, but the leadership they offer in their homes, they offer to their society, they offer to their workplace, they're world leaders. And they're world leaders because you told them from the day they were born, they were created in the image of God, and God doesn't create junk. So therefore, as a born-again believer and a mother who knows how to pray, when you raise your children, realize you're not raising ordinary children. And when you prophesy that they're mean or bad or not smart or all those things, you're prophesying the wrong things. You need to prophesy that my child will be a world leader. When Jochebed named her children, she named them with names that she knew that they were going to be world leaders. So when we talk about what made that woman, who was a mother, who determines that their child will not die, even though the rules said they're going to die, she would not allow her child to die. Who was that mother? Her name was Jochebed. What did that name mean? It meant Yahweh's glory. Can I tell you this? Every mother, whether your name is Jochebed or not, when you raise your children in your most holy faith, you're a glory to Yahweh. You're a glory to the living God. So on this Mother's Day, I hope you don't forget. I hope you don't forget that your children are sent to you by God. You know what God said? I couldn't find a better mother for your son or your daughter, so God gave that child to you. What that means is God doesn't look for junk. He looks for top quality. During Mother's Day 2020, I want to encourage you. Don't be distraught. Don't be distressed. I promise you that what you're doing, what you're pouring in, will not turn forward. As a matter of fact, the Bible said when you raise up a child in the way that he should go, when he's old, he'll not depart. So on this Sunday morning, Mother's Day, we're going to talk about Jochebed. We're going to talk about her in another way. What was she hiding? Why was she hiding? What was she hiding? So if you go with me again to Exodus chapter 2, verse number 3, it said, when she could no longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrush and dabbed it with slime and pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid him in the flags by the river bank. You see, Jochebed's got a problem. She got a real problem. And the problem was that this baby's growing. And he's as cute as he can be. He's as pretty as humanly possible. And now that she loves this baby. But she understands that if while this baby's crying in the tent or crying in the house and the Egyptian soldiers come by, they will immediately take that child and throw him in the Nile River, which is loaded with crocodiles. So she got a problem. She hid the child as long as she could possibly hide him. When she couldn't hide him any longer, she developed a plan. Listen to me, mothers. Don't think your plan won't work. Your plan will work. And you plan what you say each and every day. And you plan what happens in this child's life. Don't stop planning. Don't stop preparing. When this baby was just 3 months old, the mother realizes she has to do something because the baby's getting bigger. And any moment the Hebrew police, army, law enforcement can come by and say, we're going to take this baby out of this home. So she creates a plan. Here's the plan. She makes a basket, not an ordinary basket, a pretty basket. And when she makes this pretty basket, she puts the best cloth and the best clothes she can put in this basket, and then she puts this baby in the basket. Now she just don't throw him in the Nile River. She takes him down by the edge of the river where Pharaoh's daughter would come and take a bath. And the unique thing about this is that whenever she puts that baby in that basket and floats him in the water, she don't just throw him out there. Let me read to you what the word of the Lord says. We'll talk a little bit more in just a second. But the word of the Lord said that she puts him in the brim of the river, and she sits him there. And verse 4 said, and his sister stood afar off to watch and see what would happen. And Pharaoh's daughter came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked alongside the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the edge of the river, she said to her maids, fetch it. Can I tell you what happened? She immediately realized that there was something in that basket of great value, because this was not an ordinary basket. So what happens is when she couldn't hide her son anymore, she developed a plan. And the developing of the plan was, I will do everything I can to make sure my child is safe. And then she said, I've got to put this baby in the hands of God. There's a place where you do all you can do, mama. There's a place where you can do everything you can do, mother. But somewhere you have to put the child in the hand of God. You can't keep bailing them out of trouble. You can't get them out of mess. You can't just keep doing that. It's not economically feasible, as well as it's not really good. But when you put that child in the hand of God, God will take that child. Let me tell you something else. Takes this little baby, right? Puts him in this basket, special made basket. Has all the trappings to where it attracts the attention of Pharaoh's daughter. Pharaoh gets the baby out. And when Pharaoh gets the baby out, or the maidens get it out and hand it to her, can I tell you what happened? She opened up the basket, and there's this beautiful baby. And can I tell you what the baby smelled like? It smelled like baby magic. Can I tell you this? There's not anything I can tell you any more important than make sure your baby smells good. When your baby smells good, everybody wants to hold them. Everybody wants to hold them close. But you got to make sure that in today's society, that when you take your baby out in public, and I know that the coronavirus is different, but it's important for you to always do the best to put your baby in the best possible baskets you can put them in. And make sure that the baby smells good all the time. And so when Pharaoh's daughter opened this basket, she found something. She found a beautiful baby boy. Listen to this. There are times in our life when God does things that we can't do. There are times in our life when God does things for our children that we can't do or for our children. But when you raise that child and when you pray over that child, you should expect miracles happen in the child. Remember this, as a praying mother, you're not raising ordinary children. You're raising extraordinary children. And so in this story, when Pharaoh's daughter sees this baby, picks him up out of the river and realizes he's pleasant to look at and pleasant to smell and pleasant to hold. Listen to this. Verse number 6 said, and when she opened it, she saw the child. You can read into the scripture, and you can even read between them, because you realize what's about to happen changes everything. When she saw the child and beheld the baby wept, he didn't scream and cry, he just weeps. And immediately she had compassion on him. And she said, this is one of the Hebrew children. Why do we think life just happens? Why do we think that we shouldn't plan or prepare or make preparation to put our children in the best possible light we can put them in? Why do we not think that the things that we tell our children and teach our children don't make a difference? Let me tell you this. Every time when you tell your child something and they roll their eyes, that don't mean nothing. You just keep on telling. But they keep on, don't worry about it. When you put it in there, it will come back. Don't worry about it. When you think it's not going to happen, it's going to happen. You just keep training, teaching, and telling. Say, but they roll their eyes. Don't worry about it. Didn't you roll your eyes when your mama told you things? So don't stop. Don't get offended because they get upset with you. That's just what they're supposed to do. But you never stop preparing. This is what happened. She did all she could do, and she prepared the best possible route she could prepare. And when Pharaoh's daughter picks up this baby, this daughter, Miriam, who was standing by the way, who means loved of Yahweh, or one who loves Yahweh, when she happened in verse 7 said, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse a child for thee? It was a plan. It was a setup. It was a structure. It was orchestrated. Can I tell you, on this Sunday morning, you need to orchestrate some things for your children. You know, put them in the best possible school you can put them in. Give them the best possible opportunities. Give them the opportunity to shine. Teach them all you can teach them. Don't just say, well, I'll get some idiot to raise my children. No, you make sure and give them the best you can give them. And then when you can't give them any more, then you put them in the hands of God. But even then, you're watching out for them, and you're praying for them, and you're lifting them up before the Lord. Here's a plan. And King Pharaoh had a plan that was going to kill all Hebrew boys. But this little boy doesn't die. As a matter of fact, because Jochebed, the glory of Yahweh, develops a plan and sees that her boy doesn't die, because she puts him right next to the brim of the river, which is exactly where Pharaoh's daughter came, and creates a basket that caught the attention, and then opens up the basket, and there's a beautiful baby. Everything changes. You say, why? Because Mama had a plan. Because Mama had a plan. And Mama's plan was so important and so necessary that it comes to pass that the daughter's standing there and said, I know a Hebrew woman that could nurse this child for you. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? She created a plan, and then she put the plan into action, and then the plan worked. So in this story, what happens is Pharaoh's daughter takes the child, and then Pharaoh's Moses' mother shows up, and Moses' daughter said to her, Pharaoh's daughter, said to her, take the child, and she takes the child and nurses it for me, and I'll give you the wage. And the woman took the child and nursed it. In other words, Moses' own mother picks the child up, takes him back home, and nurses him. And no matter how many Egyptian soldiers showed up, it didn't make any difference, because now this child is protected by the hand of God and by the entire nation of Egypt. What a story. What an amazing story. So what are you saying? I'm saying pray more, talk less, work harder, find out what God's plan is for your children, and realize you are not raising ordinary children. You're raising extraordinary children. Don't believe all the lies of the world. Children are not any good. This is a bad generation. They don't know what's going on. Don't believe that. They all thought that about us. So don't give up. Don't let go. And then when they roll their eyes, do not think that's the end of the statement. Because you planted that seed in their heart and their mind, and they won't forget it. At the appropriate time, it will come back to them. You are not raising ordinary children. You're raising extraordinary children. And so here's Jochebed. Created a plan. And now it's time to take this child that she loves, that she risked her life to give birth to take him to Pharaoh's house. Look at this. And he grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. You know, the third part of this sermon today is how could such a thing happen? I thought about naming the third part A Long Dusty Road. You know, sometimes life's like that, right? She was convinced that Moses was to be something special. Well, the word of the Lord says that one day he was out and he saw something that displeased him. Moses is a man of action. I can see why she thought he was special. He was an achiever. And he goes out one day and there's an Egyptian beating up a Hebrew. He didn't like that at all. So he immediately actually beats up the Hebrew and actually kills the Egyptian and kills him and buries him in the sand. The next day goes out and there are two Hebrews fighting. The older or the more established Hebrew is beating up the younger Hebrew. And he intervenes and said, "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" And he said, "What are you going to do? Kill me like you did the Egyptian yesterday?" And the Bible said that Moses immediately knew that he was in trouble and he fled. And he leaves Egypt. And the reason he does is because Pharaoh finds out about the death and he decides he's going to kill him too. So I'm saying that when you raise a child in the way, it doesn't mean that they're always going to do exactly the way they should do, but God has given you some promises. I read a story a long time ago about a guy named James Black. And James Black's mother said that her boy was going to be a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. He does wrong, finds himself in prison, and one day James Black's mother receives a telegraph. And the telegraph said that her son had been killed in the state penitentiary and he was dead. She takes the telegraph, goes in the bedroom, shuts the door, and begins praying. Said, "God, you told me my boy was going to be a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ. I got this telegram from the state prison, said he's dead. So what do I do, God?" And she said, the Lord said, "Send the telegraph back and tell him that your son's not dead. He's going to be a minister of the gospel." She sent the telegraph back and said, "My son's not dead." Within a short period of time, she got a telegraph back from the warden of the prison saying, "You're right. Your son was not the James Black that was killed today. He did not get killed. Some other guy named James Black got killed. Your son is alive." He gets out of prison and becomes a gospel preacher. Mama, listen to me. God still speaks, and he still speaks to you about your children. Don't stop praying. Don't stop believing what the Lord said. So here he's on this long, dusty road. He leaves Egypt, and he joins himself to a man who is a priest. And he marries this daughter of the priest, who's an Ethiopian. And he marries her, right? They have children. But he's out on the backside desert tending flock. Listen to me. Nobody had heard from Moses in 40 years. His mama didn't, his sister didn't, his brother didn't. Nobody knew where Moses was. The only person in the world who knew where Moses was God. God knew exactly where Moses was, and God knew exactly how to get his attention, and God knew exactly how to get a hold of Moses. That's exactly what happened. Moses is tending the flock on the backside of the desert, and there's a bush, and it won't stop burning. This bush refuses to stop burning, and Moses goes over to see what's going on, and God said, "Moses, take off your shoes, you're on holy ground." And God said to Moses, "I want you to lead the nation of Israel out of Egypt. I want you to set them free." And Moses listens to the Lord and decides to go back and do exactly what God told him to do. Let me tell you what happens. He meets up with Aaron, and Aaron becomes a spokesperson for Moses. Moses does miracles, and Aaron tells Pharaoh what God is saying. And so they're a great team. So when Jochebed named her boy the mouthpiece of God, she knew what she was doing. The children of Israel are set free because of 10 plagues that Moses carries out by the hand of God. And they go through the Red Sea on dry land. When they get to the other side of the sea, this woman named Miriam is leading the huge, largest, most outstanding praise team you'd ever seen. And they're all worshiping God. So what are you saying? I'm saying God knows exactly what he's doing. Do not give up hope on your children. God knows exactly how to take care of the children. You say, how did all that happen? What happened? Because of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23 said, by faith, Moses, when he was born, was hid 3 months of his parents because they saw that he was a proper child, and they were not afraid of the king's command. Can I tell you something? There are all kinds of commands in our society today. All kinds of things that saying you can't raise your children in your most holy faith. All kinds of things. But don't believe that. And don't believe that what you're doing by taking your children to church or sharing them the gospel with them or telling them about Jesus Christ is not working. It's absolutely working. You know what everybody had to think when Moses is in Pharaoh's house and then Moses does what he does? Everybody had to think it's not working. It's not really taking place. But I'm going to tell you what the writer of Hebrews said. in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 24 said, it was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Christ than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to the great reward. It was by faith Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eye on the one who's invisible. On this Sunday morning, don't think that what you're doing is not making a difference, mamas. What you're doing is you're raising world leaders. If anybody had looked at Moses at that point, they'd have thought, no, he's not going to be a world leader. Moses is gone from the scene and will never, ever appear on the scene again. But that wasn't true. Moses was being prepared to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt. On the backside of the desert, nobody heard from Moses for 40 years. But God knew right where he was. Listen to me, Mom. Don't think God don't know where your children are right now. Don't think God don't know how to get their attention. Don't think that God is done with your children because of the mistakes they've made, even the murders they've committed, even the things that happen. Don't you believe that? That's not true. See how you know it's not true? Because God said God's no respecter of person. And if God would do that for Jochebed's son, God would do that for your son. Don't give up hope. God's going to make sure that your son fulfills his destiny. That's who God is. That's who you are. You did not and you are not raising ordinary children. You're raising extraordinary world leaders. Don't give up, mamas. It's not time to give up. It's time to keep on going. I want to pray for you, mamas. I want to pray for you right now. Oh, yeah, by the way, this week, every day we're going to be talking about faith, because in the beginning when we were in quarantine, I felt like it's important to talk about joy and having the joy of the Lord. I think now we have to have faith to get back into society. Have to have faith to believe God's going to take care of us. So this week we're going to be talking about faith every day. Let me pray for you. God, I thank you, Lord, for mothers. I'm convinced that the greatest calling in all the world is to be called mama. God, I ask and pray, Lord, that every mother who heard this message today would be encouraged not to look at the here and the now and the moment, not to even pay any attention to those children that are rolling their eyes and act like mama don't know anything. Lord, I pray, God, they'll understand that God gave those children to you, mama. And the only way you can lose is to give up. Don't give up. Keep putting them in the best position you can. Keep telling them the word of God. Don't give up. You're raising world leaders. And those leaders are going to make a difference because you were their mama. Lord, I pray, God, that you'll bless every mother who hears this word and let them know God has a plan that is bigger than they can imagine. I am confident Jochebed didn't realize that Moses was going to create the Hebrew nation. I'm confident that Jochebed didn't know that one day Moses would be on the mount writing the 10 Commandments or receiving the 10 Commandments. I am confident she didn't realize what God was doing. Every mother under the sound of this prayer, under the sound of this voice, I pray, Lord, they'll realize they don't know exactly what they're doing, but God knows exactly what he's going to do with those gifts of God that they've received. Bless my mothers. Bless all the mothers. In your name we pray. Amen. God bless you, moms.